If you're out in the hallway, please come in and join us. I think they're standing out there in the chip line, getting their chips and brownies.
What was it that teachers used to do?
Or mine used to be like,
turn off the light, turn the light on.
yeah, I noticed that. We're going to give it a minute for the cookie line to clear up a little bit.
They should put those in the back.
All right, well, welcome. I know we have a small contingent out in the hallway getting the brownies, but let's go ahead and get started. All right, well, welcome back. How has the morning treated you so far? Yeah? Good sessions? Okay, first timers only. How are you enjoying it? All right. Well, excellent. Again, my name is Andy. This event, for many years, I've had the pleasure of co-hosting with a gentleman named Tony Furman, who I know to the new timers, you may or may not know him. For the rest of us, he's infamous for all the right reasons. He's a great guy. And Tony has since moved on to other things. And while he could never be replaced, he could certainly be improved upon with my new good colleague, Darlene Ladd. So Darlene, could you introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm Darlene Ladd. I am the new director at Madison County Employment and Training. We're going to start off this panel with a little fun fact. We're going to ask everybody, since chips are the topic out there, what their favorite chip is when they introduce themselves. So my favorite chip, you may not have ever heard of them, are Sturzings. Sturzings potato chips are my chip. So let's start off with Ronnie. Would you introduce yourself and say your favorite chip?
Hi, I'm Ronnie Patrick. I am the director of the Division of Rehabilitation Services, which is a division of the Illinois Department of Human Services. This is Title IV of the WIOA. My favorite chip is shrimp chip. Delicious. Ooh.
Julio Rodriguez. I'm the Deputy Director for the Office of Employment and Training at the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And my favorite chips are actually plantain chips that are green banana chips. All right, for the Puerto Ricans. Okay.
Andrew Warrington. I work for a manufacturing company in Waukegan, Illinois, called UCC Environmental. We are available for all your ash handling needs. See me after. In addition, I'm a proud member of the Lake County Workforce Development Board. And currently the co-chair with Kristen Richards of the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board. And, Chip. I think you're talking about a crisp, right?
Yes, a crisp.
So my favorite crisp is Monster Munch pickled onion flavor.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so good to see you all. I'm Whitney Thompson, Deputy Director for Workforce Education for the Community College Board, and I heard that this morning was really great, some really great conversations and speakers, and so I was sad to have missed it. In terms of chips, I'm going to be maybe it's not boring, but very traditional. I'm going to do like a barbecue kettle chip, probably. I'm not a big chip fan, so that's probably the one.
It's not boring. Hi, I'm still Carrie Thomas. I'm with the Illinois Department of Employment and Security, Deputy Director for Business Services. I'm not that big of a chip person, but it would be a tie between that Cape Cod brand, just the straight up sea salt, and then Ruffles cheddar ones that everybody loves. Yeah. Sour cream cheddar. Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, we're going to start off with our questions. Whitney, how can Illinois better align post-secondary education, short-term credential pathways, and workforce services, particularly through tools like Workforce Pell, the state attainment work groups, and stronger coordination between the WIOA state plan and the Perkins plan, to increase the credential attainment and employment outcomes for both youth and adults?
Is that all, Darlene?
That's it.
Yeah. So I'll unpack that a little bit. How can we at the state level work together in our education and workforce ecosystem to improve outcomes, right? And so I think what's important is that there's some context here. Illinois is a large state. It's a diverse state with different industries. We serve diverse populations. We have different resources, geographies. And so with that comes, very specific challenges. And anytime you have a nuanced challenge, you have to have a nuanced solution. And so I think that's just some base context that there is no one simple solution to ensuring everything's aligned and everything's working perfectly, or a one-size-fits-all solution. And so with that, I think it's also important to know that we have in Illinois all the pieces to the puzzle. We have great partners, great people doing great work, and that's all of you. So I just want to thank you all for the work that you do. And so I think it's important to set the tone at the state level when we talk about alignment. And so you can't align if you have different goals and a different vision to getting to where you want to go. And so I think, we're a collaborative bunch. I work with these folks quite often. And so we do have common goals. And I do think that we have a pretty common vision for how to get there. And it's important that we're not doing this work in a vacuum. So as we're creating those goals, those objectives, and creating that vision to whatever our North Star is, that we are engaging the practitioners, the employers, and the people who are using our system. What do they want out of our system? Because we have a shared responsibility to the people of Illinois and the taxpayers that support these programs. And the way we can operationalize this collaboration and meeting those common goals is by leveraging the tools that we have, that Darlene, you mentioned, the State Career and Technical Education Plan, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act Plan, Workforce Pell, which I'll talk a little bit about. And so leveraging these tools to operationalize the strategies and the resource alignment that can happen at the local level. But even more critically, I think it's really important that we create a culture and a policy environment that at the local level that incentivizes this type of partnership, right? Because I think you heard this morning, and I wasn't here, I heard he answered all of our questions for today, but that there's a lot of uncertainty right now with federal programs specifically. That funding is, always uncertainty for that and the direction we're going. And so I think with that, if you do not have a strong local partnership, any of these types of disruptions is going to break your system, and who's going to suffer? The employers and the people in your community. And so I think it's really important that we are, again, creating that culture and that policy environment that incentivizes this partnership instead of competition. And so I think that's really important. And we have some work to do there. I think in that vein, I think it's important that we think about creating some shared processes and some shared systems. And I know that there is a referral system that's done, not yet, somewhat close, right? Yeah, so I think that's going to be helpful. I think it's also important to amplify those locally who are doing some really great collaborative work, because it is hard fitting all the pieces of the puzzle together to braid funds, to meet all the different eligibility requirements, and to not step on each other's toes, quite frankly. And so I will just call out, I know there's lots of great examples, and I didn't even mean to do this with you sitting here, but Lake County, College Lake County, you all have, yes, where are you at? You all have a really, really great process and working relationship. You work as a true team, and my understanding is you don't just refer the person on, wipe your hands of them, and go. You have a shared system. You kind of collaboratively as a team wrap your arms around someone as they're moving through the system instead of just a baton and a race, and I think that is critical to the work that we do, and I just really wanted to call that out, and I think it's really important that we're sharing out the work that our local area is doing and amplifying the best practices. So I'll just say one thing about Workforce Pell, because we have a session tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll really dig in deep to the implementation of Workforce Pell in Illinois, but that Workforce Pell itself is much more than just an expansion of federal financial aid. And I'll just maybe take a step backward, and for those who may not be working in this space, Workforce Pell is the expansion of federal financial aid for shorter programs, essentially short-term programs. And Pell is a need-based grant at the federal level. Typically, states do not have a role in that, but in OB3 that was passed last year, the state, specifically the governor, has the responsibility to certify that programs meet a certain level of criteria and performance benchmarks in order to take advantage of Pell. And so we are working as an interagency team, CARI, DCEO, IDES, ISAC, IBHE, Mr. Warrington is on our leadership team. Probably missed somebody there, but we're working to create a policy, a set of policies and a process. And so if you're interested in learning more about that, come tomorrow. But as I said, I think it's more than just the expansion of financial aid. It is a signal for what we can expect for future education and workforce funding and programs. It is a heightened sense of accountability. The benchmarks are high. It is a heightened requirement for engagement of employers with significant quality control mechanisms in place to validate that. And it's pushing states to integrate their education and employment data systems so that we can better track outcomes and have more nuanced data, more better data. And so I think you're going to see some of those key themes in any future education and workforce program coming out the Department of Ed or Department of Labor or whatever it is. So just something for you all to monitor. And it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for us to think through how we can, again, align and integrate our systems and processes to better serve our learners, our clients, and our employers. How was that? Did I get to most of your question?
Does anybody have anything to add? Quiet group.
I would just add as, being at IDES, we're not in the training space. We are relying on our partners at DCO and the colleges for that. But one of the things, the question is, how can we better align? Of course, we can always better align. But I think part of what Whitney was talking about is the way in which we do all work together actively. And one of the features of these opportunities, like Workforce Pell, or looking at our state plans together, or even the State Attainment Working Group, is that I think because we have this way that we already work together at the state level, we are clear from the beginning, or we do everything we can to be clear from the beginning. What is our role, right? Like, what is IDES's role? Like, one of our roles is we have a lot of labor market information, and we have to make sure we're thinking about that first. That's part of the reason we're at the table. We want to be sure that, do we have all the right pieces in place? Do we have the right data sharing agreements? Does everybody understand what our data is and what it is not? Can we answer all the questions that people need answered? Do we need to communicate to, somebody at DOL or somebody, whoever authorized the program, okay, we can't do that, we have to. So it's really part of the working better together is just being clear on what our role is in this ecosystem. And I think a lot of that has improved over the years just by the factor that the way we work in this state locally, and all of what you tell us is not working has helped us to better position ourselves in projects like this. And I would say, from my perspective, I'm not the higher ed person or the training person, but it does feel like we are really well positioned in Workforce Pell, and I keep asking Whitney that, and she's like, that seems that way compared to other states. So I just would add that.
I've got another point I wanted to make. If you really think about it as an amateur, which is what I am fundamentally in this whole business, first of all, this meeting, I don't know that every state is doing this, where we're getting together and looking at it. But if you look at the legislation and all the things and all the threads that we've got to pull together to make it work here, it's as though somebody in Congress sat down and said, how can we design a system that will ensure that nobody does work together? So, and then sort of at the end of every one of the bills they say, and by the way, you should coordinate together, you should fix this mess that we have created. So I think it's like you said, it's a testament to all the work of the people that are in here, that if an employer goes in, there's the easy button, I'll talk a little bit about that later, where they don't see that mess behind the scenes, and if it's somebody looking for a job or some training, that you make it easy. You make it easy for them so they don't have to deal with the complexity of what's actually going on behind that easy button.
All right, thank you, panel. All right. Looking at the next question here. The next question starts with Carrie. Sorry, got a little feedback there, guys. Apologies. What are you hearing from USDOL and or the Department of Education about how artificial intelligence is being incorporated into workforce policy? And how might these developments shape the future role of employment services, such as labor exchange, job matching, and employer engagement.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is I'm not an expert on artificial intelligence, but I'm going to answer, so I'm going to specifically answer the question about what are we hearing from DOL. So you heard the speaker this morning talk about like all the different ways that the feds are putting out federal policy that's confusing, maybe a little bit and a little bit contradictory. But I will say specifically on AI, like if you were to go into the talent strategy document that they put out last August, there's 5 pillars. One of those pillars is innovation and flexibility, or flexibility and innovation, which sounds like a pillar of every plan ever. And within that flexibility and innovation is, I wrote it down, match the speed and scale of AI-driven economic transformation. So if you know what that means, I would love to talk to you later about that. But what was the most meaningful to me is that within that section it says we want to leverage existing statutory authority to promote flexibility and innovation, which basically means they're going to do things around the edges to promote AI. So there aren't any huge initiatives right now. A couple things that they have put on their website is like about how to think about AI in the context of apprenticeship, which is sort of AI-centric jobs. So again, promoting specific AI-centric jobs for which there are registered apprenticeship programs. So that's out there. I think Nick Beadle this morning did highlight the digital AI literacy framework. I think that's what it's called. And there are some interesting tools and things which are really just directional, right? And they're also, to me, what I hear is we are on the AI bandwagon, come along with us. But I think one of the most important things to remember, which I think Nick said somewhat this morning, I did hear a speaker at a research conference talk about this, is what is happening in the world in which is talking about AI. It's we get drawn into the it's going to eliminate all the jobs and ruin the world and take all this, or it's going to fix all these major social problems. It's going to do neither of those things. We have to stay focused on what are the things that could help improve processes. And so when I think about delivering employment services to job seekers, and when you think about the workflow process of being a job seeker, I mean, you can think about the workflow process in your own organization about what you do and the ways that some of these AI tools have been already being implemented, not just in this current period of time, and the way you see them improving things. But you could also think about it from a job seeker perspective or a case manager, career counselor perspective, which is like there's all these different things in the workflow. The resume, there's going to be increased use of AI in resume tools. There's the job searching tools. So all the job boards, whether they're Indeed or LinkedIn or Illinois Job Link or whatever, there's going to be new tools embedded in those to make to potentially make the search better, somebody's search, the matching between your resume and the skills better, things like that. There's probably going to be, I think we're increasingly seeing tools using AI generation in like practicing your interview skills, practicing your pitch, training your staff, really pretty sophisticated tools like that, somewhat if you can afford them as an organization. So I think if you think about the sort of flow of being a job seeker, same is true for an employer, flow of hiring, what are the tools that I'm using? What are the things that are coming at me that can improve the actual outcome of that process? So I think that's the part in the conversation that sometimes gets missed, is that you cannot know if it's improving unless a human being is looking at whether the tool that we're applying is actually doing what we want it to do, and then looking at stating what is the goal of using this tool, and then is it doing that, like evaluating it. There is always going to be that need to understand whether that's working or not. It's not going to be, turning something on and everybody's going to get a better job or, something like that. I think the last thing I would say is that, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. is just related to the fact that we have to be thoughtful about which tools are working or valuable. And I'm sure there are as many people in the room, I'm sure like at least 50% of you have gotten some kind of promotion from a vendor or a company that says they have the AI solution for you. So I think that's the other thing that we've all seen in, like that the vendors come fast and it sounds really good and maybe it's good, but we really have to be thinking about what is the problem we're trying to solve, and why do we think that this tool is going to make the difference? But I do think rather than the big systems like, okay, this is going to eliminate all the jobs and fix this problem, it's more in the individual workflow processes that we see either in the helping people find jobs or helping employers fill jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, to add that to that is one of the other sort of pillars in the president's plan is around worker mobility. And they specifically mention AI. And it really, this speaks to what Carrie was just talking about. What are the tools? How do we ensure that the folks that we're training, the folks that we're providing career services, we're giving them access to tools that really help not just where they are today and where they hope to position themselves, but also really increases not only their mobility, but marketability. And so that to me is to me that is encouraging, but it's still where the rubber meets the road is, what are those tools? How do we set parameters around them? Because there's also information safety. When you look at the number of articles about scams, about people's identity theft, we have to be very, very smart in this space because we do have access to thousands of people's information, and we can't just, bless you. So being able to set guardrails, I think, is what we want to do with all of you, is figuring out not what's the best product, but what are the tools that really enhance worker mobility, and also how do we ensure that the tools we use today will be the practical tools for tomorrow? Because this is an industry that's moving, as Carrie said, we're all probably getting like vendors. I literally get about 20 vendor solicitations a day. Now, mind you, partly it's because we have a Julio Rodriguez, who's our CIO too at DCO, so they often mistake me for him. But it's interesting to me how often those companies act as if it's a foregone conclusion that their tool can solve our problems when they haven't even asked us what the problem is. So I think don't feel like we're behind. Understand that we're thoughtful in how we think about this work, and that's the right place to be in a time when there's an enormous change at multiple levels.
I wanted to add to that what I really appreciated both. This is Ronnie. I appreciated both Carrie and your remarks, Julio. And I was thinking about young people, so folks that are 5 years old probably that are engaging with these systems. And I've understood that there's even some classrooms in Chicago where the curriculum is about how do you instruct artificial intelligence? How do you become the driver of its learning and creating models, not like developing answers? And then so what came up for me in learning that is, how is it structured in an equitable way across all communities that we have in our diverse state? So are we just going to be reinforcing current systems of hierarchy, or is it going to be able to get away from that? Because we've learned some of the caveats was around hiring is that folks with disabilities could be screened out, or other type of typically left out communities could be left out from screening processes because of the learning. It learns from our current human foibles, so it's adopting us as its lens, and then applying it in its way of efficiency and rapid processing. So the young people and how they are engaging with it. I observed my niece, who's 13, she's autistic, and she and my sister came to visit me on a work trip. And she's constantly talking to an AI bot. That's how she's engaging and learning about questions all the time that come up for her. So those are some thoughts that came up for me based on what folks have said. Thanks.
And I would just add a couple quick things. I think, as we think about any sort of great advancement in technology, that there's people that get sort of left behind in terms of its usage. And so I know for adult education, we're reinforcing thinking about how we can build AI skills in our digital literacy programs. I mean, obviously I don't even really know how to use AI. So we got to work with instructors so that they know how to use AI. And then what are the types of skills? So I think we're all still trying to figure that out while recognizing that there's a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of challenges. And I think Julio and Renee and Carrie talked about those, and that there's great opportunity with efficiency. But AI I think it's important for us to, I do, at least personally think that's important to reinforce that AI doesn't take the place of human interaction, intervention, or support. And so especially as the programs that we offer, and Carrie, you made the point, it's not taking all the jobs, and I think that's important. But as the work that you do, I think it's important that we continue to move forward with human-centered design to our work, and then use AI to make our workload easier while providing support to individuals. So just add that.
Great. Thank you for your insight. Ronnie, the next question is for you. Ready? My long, tall, big questions. From your perspective, what emerging uses of artificial intelligence show promise as low-risk tools to increase accessibility to services, support individuals with disabilities in navigating education and employment pathways, and improve outcomes while maintaining strong consumer protections?
Well, first of all, I want to share with you a personal story. Shocking, I know, for people that know me. But I have other VR directors across the nation and territories that we convene regularly. And when AI first came on the scene, I had a VR director. He retired, the great Joe Xavier, California VR director. And he's blind and had grown up in workforce through the Title IV workforce vocational rehabilitation. And he is very, very interested in AI and was talking about it a lot. And I was that science fiction nerd girl that was no, scary, bad, dehumanizing, you say all the words, right? And he said, well, you just try it, Ronnie. And so I did give it a swing. And what I think comes up for me in terms of what you're asking here is that every single person has a talent. There's something about every single human being. You can even go sentient if you want to go, but we're talking about humans right now. And humans that live in Illinois. And those folks have talents. There are talents that are within each one of those human beings. And are we providing enough support for that talent to come through and giving each human being the space to express that talent, that then we can all benefit from that brain power and solve some really fantastic problems. So for folks with disabilities, we might be nonverbal. For me, I have a hand that doesn't open anymore because of arthritis. But yet there are tools, artificial intelligence being one, I used voice dictation way before it was available on your cell phone, before there's even cell phones, when my hands started to curl in and I couldn't type during my senior year in college. So you can see how technology has allowed many people with disabilities to be able to engage and express what's inside of them. And we all benefit from that. I mean, I know that's like, you know, if this microphone was a drumstick, I would be beating the table, right? This is like my big driver and theme of my life work. But I do truly believe in the talent of every single human being, including people with disabilities, and that how technology can be a great facilitator of that expression. There are concerns, though, exploitation, privacy, again, the thing I mentioned about the foibles of human beings, where we stigmatize experience based upon our prejudgment. And so, those are some things we have to be concerned about, and also data. Many years ago, like probably 2006, 2008, there was a book that came out about data mining, and, we're deep in it. Speaking of deep, mining in, get it? Okay. Anyways, tip your servers. Thanks for coming to my show.
Anybody else?
Great response. Oh, please, Julio.
I so appreciate this woman next to me because, because she does, right? Every opportunity she gets, she reminds us of who's in the room that sometimes we don't see, right? And to me, one of the advances that technology can do is to give voice to people who've not had voice. The examples you gave were just perfect. So that's the other thing, right? We should really recognize that this could be a great opportunity. I grew up with parents that didn't speak English, and there I was, the interpreter. And I'm interpreting legal language in order for them to get benefits. That should never have happened, but that's the universe we lived in. So for me, if AI advances translation services, so people truly understand the benefits they're receiving, but more importantly, their right to those benefits. Those are things that we should champion. And if it makes us better, because all of us who do this work, the complexity of the policies that we have to utilize and implement, imagine that becomes easier and faster and simple. So it's about access, not just for those who need a voice, but also for those of us who struggle every single day with very complex policies. So there's opportunity, and it's not always the robot getting ready to take over it. So anyway, I just wanted to say that and thank Rodney for reminding us about Voices for Folks.
All right. Thank you, panel. Fantastic answers. Julio, don't let that microphone get away from you. The next one's for you. All right. Julio, how should Illinois' workforce system respond to emerging federal priorities such as the America's Talent Strategy for the Golden Age, proposals to reauthorize WIOA, and the growing focus on talent marketplaces, while ensuring local flexibility, equity, and strong outcomes for workers and employers across the state?
So first, you should use AI to briefly edit these questions because these are some long questions. Because
there were M dashes in that, though.
Okay.
It's a telling thing. M dashes.
M dashes. Okay. So, yeah. Because when I looked at everyone's questions, I was like, wow, run-on sentence. There we go. Okay. So first of all, I'm not going to repeat a lot of the things that you heard from Nick this morning. I think a lot of what he said about where's the environment, but I do think it is important to kind of know what it is that the administration and to some degree Congress thinks the system should be doing. One It's industry-driven strategies. Who in this room has never heard that? Okay? We say it in a lot of, employer-driven, market-driven, all of this terminology. But I think it is important because it doesn't change our work. I think a lot of noise has been made around that things are radically changing. And when I go through these pillars that the administration has put out, while there may not be clarity, it isn't work that's new. So the second pillar is around, and we talked a little bit about this, worker mobility. And that really is about continuing to advance the skills of workers so that they are able to not only move within a particular sector, but they may want to change careers. I think one of the things that we're seeing right now is a lot of career changers, people who've been in jobs 10, 15 years, who realize I fell into this job. I didn't acquire the job. And now I have an opportunity to work with a case manager, with a college counselor, and really figure out, what do I want to do? What skills do I actually have, or what skills can I actually learn that will create better opportunities than the opportunities that I just have accepted are the only opportunities that are available to me. So I think short-term Pell could be a great opportunity to figuring out, particularly for incumbent workers or dislocated workers, how to get on a quick pathway to new skills in a new career. The other pillar is integrated systems, and you already heard both from Carrie and Whitney. I think we're trying to figure that space out. And I do think human-centered design, though, has to be the foundation, because whatever integration we do, it does not eliminate you. In fact, what it should be doing is putting you at the forefront of that work. And these tools are there to help support you. So to me, the integrated system is more about not just how we put technology together, but what's the principles, or I think what Whitney said, what's the framework by which we all set our goals and our vision going forward? Accountability. This is the one that I think I worry about because, as many of you know, WIOA is very, very much about counting the numbers. Many of you in this room have argued we should have an incremental performance measures. If I'm an adult and I can't read at a 9th grade reading level, to expect in a year that I'm going to be reading at a 9th grade reading level, be on a career path to a quality job, and do that using AI and just and a bus card that gets me to the employer, okay? But if you think about it, that's the craziness of what the system asks us to do. So part of us, as we think about some of these pillars or some of these things that this administration sees as critical to our work, we need to be able to push back and say, these aren't new things, but they have to be defined by us and not by you, because we're the ones that do the work every day. So one thing I do think we need to think about as a system is, how do we push back in practical ways and in ways that really call attention to the great work that you all are doing every day. And that's about accountability. It's holding the people who set these rules accountable for the impracticality and the under-resourced system that is being asked to do many of these things. And then lastly, innovation and flexibility. So we've submitted a number of waivers. And one of them that I do think is really out of the box is many of you know that the SNAP program now has work requirements. In fact, May 1st marked the first unintended consequences of those work requirements, which means many people will lose those benefits as a result of not being able to engage in work activities or activities that would meet the work requirements. But we were given an unrealistic timeline. And so now we have to work within the resources we have to try to make that path different than what it is today. And that's why we asked for a waiver, a 2-year waiver, to prepare our system to really be able to serve those folks. Now, I don't know whether we'll get that waiver or not, but to me, it's about the first test around whether you want to help people and the workforce system be the best system for them to be supported, or whether this is just about pushing people off a cliff. And so I'm hoping that by us putting these waivers out and challenging them around innovation and flexibility, we'll be able to do the work that we believe we need to do. But here's the call to action to all of you. We in Illinois need more investments in workforce.
Yes.
I am very grateful the General Assembly has given us additional money to help support local workforce areas, but you know and I know it's not enough. When Nick talked about providing more supportive services, well, that's not going to happen with WIOA dollars. That is going to require investments both locally and at the state level. And so I implore all of you to talk to your legislators and talk about the importance, not just of the workforce system, but of the supports that people need when they start working and they start on their career path. Otherwise, those 5 pillars are going to be a huge challenge for us as a system. But they're not new. They're all things that we have all been doing for many years. And so don't be afraid of them, but think about how we can creatively meet them.
I think you're supposed to drop the mic after that.
I did. It wasn't dramatic.
I just wanted to add to that. Like, my takeaway from listening to Nick this morning was, although, I mean, we at IDS are in the same situation as anybody who gets federal dollars, is it feels very uncertain. But when, kind of he outlined what is actually happening right now and the likelihood of certain things happening, it's like, okay, even though there'll be some whiplash, right, because things will get proposed or we'll get asked for some information, there is a certain amount of like, okay, that's not that terrible, whatever the block grant was, is not likely to happen. We're not likely to have to go through that. So really, it is a little bit like focusing on what we already do and do well in Illinois and keep doing it. And I would say 2 things. One is when I hear, come to events like these, or I'm in interagency collaborative work, and as I said, I think we have really good tools in Illinois that either we've developed or taken advantage of the federal opportunities. I think the apprenticeship work is really strong. I think the work around the talent pipeline management and the way we're trying to work together and build those principles into the everyday work of the system as partners. I think the work around supporting DHS with the SNAP work requirements is resulting in some new and improved processes and tools, and just remembering that for ourselves and that we need to keep down that road. So that's one thing. And then the second thing I would say is within the last 6 months or so, I've seen 2 very different pieces of research that included qualitative pieces that actually talked to job seekers about what made a difference. And with everything, with all the great online tools, virtual tools, self-service tools, all things that work for people, it was the career navigation, like the assistance with navigating what it takes to re-enter the labor market or get on a different career pathway, And, sometimes everybody's like, oh, it's so confusing. There's so many different things. It's so difficult. It's actually really how the labor market is for a lot of people, regardless of whether your 4 core titles are in 4 different state agencies. It doesn't matter. Like, really navigating the labor market is not easy for somebody who has been out of it for a while, who's never been in it. They're a young person. They don't have a good mentor. They want to try a different career path. And the thing that makes the most difference is career navigation assistance. And that is very individualized and very human. And I think that the way that we're going to respond to the needs of Illinoisans, if they're on SNAP, if they're experiencing homelessness, if they're in, been subject to a mass layoff that they never anticipated, is really making sure that, that's the role of the workforce system. That's what we're positioned to do, is to help with that navigation. So it's part of my takeaway from here. What, it was like all these shocking, terrible, sad kitty things that were, happening this morning. But at the same time, it was, when it came to the conclusion, it's like, oh no, we have a lot of tools. We know what we're doing. We can do it well. Yes, we need more resources, but that does not mean we need to divert our path in any way.
Ditto. Yes. Literally going to say like all of those things.
Great, thank you. Andrew, next paragraph question is for you. From the perspective of a business leader serving on the Illinois Workforce Innovation Board, how should the workforce system evolve to better meet employer needs, particularly as education to work alignment, artificial intelligence, and emerging federal priorities like WIOA reauthorization and talent marketplaces reshape how businesses find and develop and retain talent?
I'm just consulting what one of the parts of the questions means. I see this as a smorgasbord type question, and that means I can choose which bits of it I would like to answer. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about employers and their needs. And I want to glom on to the AI discussion because I think a lot of us are interested in that a little bit more from an employer's perspective. And this whole thing about how businesses find, develop, and retain talent, the rest of it I'm ignoring. So first thing, employer needs. What's really good about this conference, there are so many sessions on employer engagement. And I think the first one I came to was 3 years ago. And there weren't that many. So that's really, really good because I'm going to step down as the co-chair of IWIB this year sometime. And I think, to me, that employer engagement thing is the thing that is really the critical path item or the throttle to how we can grow the number of people who are engaged in the system, the number of people that we're helping to find better jobs, to train, the number of employers that we help. And I know that's kind of like the sales thing, right, in a manufacturing business. And if we're really successful in growing our engagement by even a few percentage points, then that is going to have a big issue on the execution or operations part of the business, which takes money and it takes people and it takes resources because what you do is very labor intensive. So I don't care. Let's talk about employer engagement and get more people on board. And just to give you an idea of the stat, this is coming from AI, so maybe check it, all right? There are 1.3 million business establishments of one form or another in Illinois. 1.2 million of them are small business establishments. Just focusing on my sector, 12,000 of them are in the manufacturing business, and that employs between 500 and 700,000 people in Illinois, and we're the 4th largest manufacturing state in the nation, which is great. Now, of all of those jobs, it seems like the latest result is that in manufacturing in general in the country, we heard it this morning, 600,000 vacancies, people that unfilled vacancies, employers saying, I would hire that person for this job if I could find them. And so it started me thinking about who's to blame for that, who is responsible for that. And I am an employer, but I don't speak for all employers. I'm just talking for myself, but that means I can be a little bit rude about them. I think the fault lies largely with them. Most of the manufacturing employers I talk to seem to be still waiting for the welder bus, the bus full of welders, to show up outside their shop so that they can hire one or two. And I don't even know that ever happened, but it isn't happening anymore, and it's not likely to happen in the future. So employers really need to get with the program and get the idea that they are responsible for generating that talent pipeline, for making sure that people are prepared, for working with workforce development, et cetera, and the system, so that they can generate their own talent pipeline. It's not a crazy idea. I think back in the old days, that's how it happened with apprenticeship models. It's how it's going to happen in Illinois with apprenticeship models and earn while you learn and workforce shorter term internships and that kind of stuff is really what IWIB and the rest of the system is focused on. But it looks like, I think, employers really need to relearn how to train their workforce, how to coach people, how to mentor people, how to make sure that they stay. And the good ones already are doing it, but the folks that we're talking to, all of the business engagement people that are in this room, I think, I would hazard a guess, you're talking to a tiny minority of that 12,000 manufacturing companies or 1.3 million business enterprises. It's the very, very tiny Class A plus employers that you're engaging in, and most of them are not thinking about it, and they really, really need to be. So I think the system itself, you by expanding who you're talking to, by using some of the data, there's also the other thing that I think is great here is we are talking about data and how do we find out who the 1,346 manufacturing enterprises that there are in Lake County, I think that was the right number, who they are and how we're talking to them and who is it, because the estimate was we think it's maybe about 50 or 70 that we're talking to. So that's a focus area because economically speaking, for us to grow as a nation, and the government, the president wants to grow manufacturing apparently. So we need to expand the number of folks that are involved in manufacturing employment. And by the way, it turns out it's a great way to make a living wage and to get into a career pathway that you don't need a 4-year degree to get on the first rung of, and you can expand your ability. And like me, I started like that. I run a manufacturing business. I'm not unusual in that area that you can grow and become. Get yourself into an increasingly good job. So that's what I think employers really need to do, and they need to plug into the system. And I think we really need to go out there and treat this like a sales event, find out who are the prospects, go out there and tell them about what we can do to help. I don't think so much it's about grants and handing them cash and that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe to get the door open it is, but to me the benefit of working with the system is that talent pipeline, knowing that you've got a pipeline of people for your growing business that's going to fit something that is coming in the future. And I would also add a word of caution at this stage. Steve Jobs, I think, said a long time ago that if he had asked his customer, it's kind of like the Henry Ford thing, if he had asked the guy that owned a horse and buggy what future transportation method he would like, that person would probably have said a faster horse and buggy, not a motor car. And Steve Jobs said the same thing about the iPod, that, you know, we want a better Walkman or whatever. Employers don't really know, I think, frankly, what they want to do in the next 3 to 5 years. They might be able to tell you who they would like to hire in the next few weeks, or which hires they have had that didn't work out because they didn't have the right training. The needs are pretty immediate, especially those smaller employers who are doing everything. And in a smaller employer of 5 people, then the person who's the business owner is also the HR manager and the IT and the salesperson and runs the shop and does all of these things. They don't have time to think about what are my HR needs for the next 3 to 5 years. So I think that's something else that we can do using data. But fundamentally, I think there are 3 things that the system needs to do for employers. One is to be a trusted partner and come to them with what other employers are saying, or what the system or what the data is saying, and not only looking at the data of stuff that has happened and things that we can tell them what the trends are to date, but investing in the ability to look at the forecasts and read extensively about what's coming down the pipeline, because they do not have the time to do that. So if you can go and be the trusted partner for the employer and say, this is where we think employment is going in your sector, whatever it might be, I really think that's a big value add that you can bring to the average employer. So providing, the second thing is being able to provide employees, people here on this table have said it already, not that are 99% of what you need for that welder job that you're trying to hire, or that CNC programmer job that you're trying to hire, but maybe they're 60 or 70% of what you need. They have the basics, they have the soft skills, they are prepared, they're ready to learn for the future, and they know how to learn and be successful in the employment market. So focus on that is my advice. And the last thing is that, back to that easy button. You all know how complicated the system is. They don't need to know that. So if they want to start an apprenticeship program, figure out a way to do it for them. Have them press the easy button, give them the form, and say, sign here. That is really a key role that I know most of you already know that you have, that they do not need to have a deep understanding of what's going on, thank God. What they really need to be able to do is to know the right people at workforce development in your system to work. So I'll finish up with AI. There's a couple of things, and I want to make this a positive message, because I read the science fiction stuff as well as Rane, and Arnold Schwarzenegger warned us all about this in Terminator 1 and 2 and 3. Was the 4? I don't know. So I don't really want to talk so much about that. But I think there's AI is a way of getting the crappy work out of everybody's day and allowing us to focus on the human interactions and the value-added stuff. And yesterday I participated in a virtual panel, and there was a CEO of a hospital network, and she was telling us about how they're using AI. And I think this is a really good example. So this is a children's hospital. They do very, very complicated surgery for children that have some serious medical conditions. And what that means is a program of surgery that means that child is going to come in and have at least 6 different procedures in order to treat whatever it is that they've got. What she said was the surgeons, the physicians, all of the paperwork and all of the documentation that surgeon needs to read and understand before they start the surgery, it is wads and wads of paper, and it is not consolidated information. It comes from different doctors and medical providers, and it's a big fat wad of paper. It might take them, the doctor, a whole day or maybe 2 days to read through it and get it refined down to what they actually need to know in order to do that next procedure. They have got this down at this hospital to now where the doctor can sit down for a couple of hours and go through that and understand it. So the question is, what would you rather have your surgeon doing, sitting in their office plowing through piles of paper, or actually doing surgery and talking to people? And to me, that's the thing that AI is going to do. But and therefore, what we need to do is get rid of the FUD, the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and prepare people to be able to use AI as a tool. That is definitely something that we need to do. Maybe I'm breaking the rules here. IWIB is going to form an AI task force, which is going to look a little bit about how do we use AI in the system. And very wise counselors advise us to do that against some of us who thought we should have a broader scope, because frankly that's the only thing we can really get done if we have a wider scope. But I think within the system we really need to be thinking about how do we prepare people to work with AI, what can it do, what should it not do, what should we have our people doing, and how should we use AI to get rid of the crappy jobs that are in the system. The thing that we really don't have time to talk about is the asterisk to that, which is so many jobs, including doctors, including engineers, including, you name it, use effectively the apprenticeship model. When I was a young engineer, they put me for 3 months doing some really grunt work, crappy stuff that you really did not need a 4-year degree to be able to do. And I thought at the time I'm completely wasting my time. But the reality is I learned a ton of stuff doing that. We all use that system. And that's my concern about AI, is how do we, the step to the first rung on the ladder, if you like, is continually getting higher and higher. And that is a problem for most of us in the system that want to find roles for people who are not as well prepared, that are not at that 60 or 70% level. How do we get them there? And so use AI to do the stuff that you don't want to do, and that'll allow you to upskill yourself, move yourself up the stack, so you're doing the things that only humans can do.
Thank you, and Andrew, so well said on that first rung comment. That's quotable. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our panel for your time and attention to the questions. I will make a promise that before next year we will run the questions through Skynet or what other AI might have taken over by then. I would also like to very briefly applaud Darlene. This is her first panel, so thank you, Darlene. Great job. All right, so we have one last series of breakout sessions. We will begin bright and early tomorrow with breakfast at 8:30, and then at 9 a.m. is our kickoff with, we have 2 sessions available in the morning, and you will not want to miss the closing plenary. We have a fantastic speaker. Michael Carl is planned to be here. We will have you out of here no later than 1:30. I promise you that. So please go forth, engage. Oh, you're starting.
The breakout sessions will start at 3:45, so you have 5 minutes to make it there. We did adjust the agenda because the panel was just very engaging. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.